it's not always about your job role. It's about you as an individual.
Young people do that because they want to see how far their social is willing to go.
We have to help these young people prepare for real life.
You know what? There's more to us than just kicking a football and just rapping. Yeah. As a black man, I can be educated. Right. So what are you saying, people? Listen, we're back. You know, you lot thought Leah. You lot thought Leah left, innit? She didn't leave. You know, she's here for another episode of The Social Worker and the Mentor.
No, she said, let me bless them for that.
Let me bless you guys for another
more time.
100%, man, 100%. Do you know what? Just reflecting on Leah, that last episode was powerful. You know, very, very powerful. Which leads on to this episode, the Daddyless Daughters project. Where did it come from?
Sorry, before you start, right? Yeah, right. So, listen, right. So, Lee's cracking up, you know. Now, do you know? So, when we started our podcast, you know, I started to subscribe to quite a few different podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, whatever, whatnot. And I see yours, and but obviously the word daddyless, I thought, wow, that's powerful. Because obviously I work with a lot of young, vulnerable females. You know, little bad breed, getting them and everything. But they're good already, right? Yeah.
Big up yourselves.
And I just like to watch it. Because remember, even before we spoke about it, I was like, right, have you seen this thing called
Daddyless Daughters?
You know?
Yeah.
But I thought, but it was the word daddyless, and I thought, wow, this is powerful.
Bruv, I've seen a Leah pop up everywhere, you know, on TikTok. On my FYP page, I'm just saying, I'm like, no, you know, this is interesting, you know.
That's what I'm saying. But the word daddyless, that's
it's powerful. It is.
Before, even though, we know a lot of the young man them or the young boys, but it's the girls. You know? And I've been saying this for years. Like, those who know me will tell you, right? Yeah, the girls are very much forgotten about, not on purpose, but they're very much forgotten about, and the impact of their dad not being there. Yeah, and the reason why. There is they go to gangs or they're going out with older man them. They're looking for that father figure or that male figure to say, do you know it's going to be okay? And it might be toxic. 9 times out of 10, it is toxic. It's inappropriate. Anyway, I'm going to be in too far. But
I like where you're going with it.
You understand?
That's why I'm not interrupting with.
Because it's a deep. No, listen.
It's deep, bro. It's deep. It's deep.
Some of my cases, they're not. Listen, bro. Listen.
No, bro. No. I know. I know.
The females, by the way.
No, I know.
Oh my God.
I know. But Aaliyah, Daddyless Daughters. What was the origin of it?
So that was it came about. The seed came about when I was in prison. I just hated the level of self-harm. That is mainly what made me sit back and think, I never seen self-harm like that. And I grew up in children's homes. Yeah. So the level of self-harm that I saw in prison disturbed me. And I used to go back to my cell and I started thinking about the different ways that first of all, I was like, oh, these professionals are so they're so dumb. These girls have to literally cut their skin for you to understand.
It's called them dumb, but it's true.
For you to understand this internal war that they have to live with.
Yeah.
And then so I would go back and I was thinking what different ways did in our community did we self-harm? Because it wasn't really a part of our community to cut our skin, but we smoke weed early.
Yeah.
That's self-medicating. That's a form of self-harming. We hypersexualized ourselves. That was also a form of self-harming. A lot of my friends had unhealthy relationships with food. They had eating disorders when we was younger. We didn't know that's what it was or whatever. That was also a form of self-harming. So I started like thinking about these different complex behavior patterns that I adopted growing up, that my friends adopted growing up, and that I was seeing around me. And like, I just started asking everyone questions. Like, I just became very curious about why the girls were acting the way they were acting, or why they would say certain things. And then they started telling me like their life stories. Then I started finding out a lot of them were like groomed by their mums. A lot of them were abused, raped by their dads, their uncles, and stuff like that. And so that also disturbed me. And then I just got really passionate about it. By the time I came home, I started doing a lot of voluntary work. I went back to my local authority. I did like voluntary work with the children's rights team there. I became a participation coordinator, went on to work in supported housing. And that's kind of when I started developing like my one-to-one resources. Like, what was my niche? What did I actually want to focus on? Because I knew I was onto something with this. I knew the one thing we all had in common was we were all fatherless. And there's different ways you can be fatherless, by the way. You can have a man present in your house, but because the way men are conditioned, provide, be practical.
Yeah.
Your daughter doesn't need that. Your daughter needs emotional
Yes.
availability.
Yeah.
Your daughter needs you to show up in a different way than to, like, you know, your son, you need to teach him a trade. You need to go and, you know, teach him about life and how to position himself as a man. Whereas with young daughters, we need something different. So you can have a dad who's in your house, but you're still considered daddyless because he's not emotionally present or available for you. So now what do you have to do? You have to go outside your house and find that information somewhere else. That's what leads us into these kind of weird, risky, dangerous relationships. So yeah, I started talking about it more and like just talking about it to my friends and becoming really obsessed with all of it. And then one day, and I haven't told this part of the story before, but the actual name is kind of like a bird call because Oprah did a conference and she named the conference Daddyless Daughters.
Okay.
And so I sat and watched this like 4-hour conference and I was like, this is it. This is actually what we need. Like, this is what my community need. And so, yeah, I named it Daddyless Daughters and hopes that, you know, once we're nationally recognised,
100%.
will call us. And yeah, it'll be on. She'll see what we was able to create with that.
I also want to ask about layers.
Yeah.
How was layers? Because how was layers? I mean, we didn't roll. We should have, bruv.
You lot missed out.
Yeah,
on some
bruv.
magic
We
that
need to slap ourselves for not rolling still, innit? I know we have to slap ourselves, innit? But tell us about layers as well.
If I ever tell you that day, but yeah.
Yeah. I know what you had go on, innit? But still. But yeah, go Leah. Leah.
Layers came about because I put myself up for a documentary that was being filmed in Holloway. It was announced that Holloway is going to be closing down and knocked down, and they sold it to Peabody, and people campaigning around that. And and I always had this vision to go back there and film. I thought it was going to be like a TV series, but it wasn't. It was this documentary anyway. So I put myself forward for that, and there was a group of 6 of us. Went back to the prison. We went back to our first cells. I'm telling that story of kind of what led us up to being in that building and what that building meant. Because for me, when I went to prison, that was the first time I felt safe. That was the first time that like I could just pause and ask myself some important questions to figure out how I want to place myself in society. So yeah, there was a group of 6 of us and we had group therapy for 2 weeks and they filmed it. And it was a rocky road. It's interesting. That project's just gone into editing phase, so that'll be coming out next year. Oh, lovely. But from that call out, we had like loads of women come forward and say they want the opportunity to be able to go back there and just close that chapter of their lives. So me and the production company partnered up on Layers. And so we wanted to give opportunity for anybody who had been in Holloway to come back and tell their story, but in a creative way. So we based the whole project around letters because letters is like a really important means of communication to keep relationships when you're in prison. And so we wanted them to write to somebody who positively or negatively contributed to their time in prison or their younger self or anybody who had basically impacted them during that time of their lives. And another part of it was about us taking like these positive iconic images of the women to reverse what the public actually
I've seen it. Yeah.
So like we've got one of our participants who did her full criminology degree in prison. She went back with her graduation hat,
that's powerful,
and took that picture back in the prison. And there's other women that also incorporated different parts of positive things that they took from that experience. And then the last part is the docuseries, which I'm going to start releasing next week, where I interviewed each woman just to put some context on their letters, to actually find out, okay, like what were the labels that were put on you in your childhood or growing up that maybe led you to accepting or adopting a lifestyle that society deems is not like, you know, lawful, and which led you to prison, if that makes sense. So yeah, we had the gallery experience, which the gallery, the Layers exhibition was a very immersive experience where you get to kind of like, the building took you on a journey. We blew up the women's words and kind of put them all over the gallery. And so you could unpack their portraits and connect it to their letters. And then we isolated a room in the gallery. We took furniture from the prison the bed, the sink, kind of did the dimensions so you would understand what it would be like to live in that space, blacked out the room, and then had our docuseries kind of playing on the walls. And people sat in there for hours, like taking in these women's stories. Like we only had funding to run it for about 4 days, and we had 7,500 people show up.
Wow.
And we was covered by all the major outlets, and like I was quite proud of like the thing, even though you know they put subliminals like with the pictures that they played around with, but the journalists ultimately had like really positive things to say about the project, and I feel like everybody that came could see a family member or a friend, or like these stories that essentially were about prison, but really they were about like universal pain points. You understand? And how there's just different ways that people are dealing with their pain. And so was prison the right place for that woman, or should she have gone to rehab? Like, was prison the right place for me, or should have social services done their job? You know what I'm saying? Like, just kind of asking those questions without asking those questions. And just asking people to kind of think about the grey areas of the system that we're very much conditioned to look at the system like it's black and white, but it's grey areas, and there's like 50 shades of grey.
Can I just say, so all right, I had a family member that was in Holloway. I'll say more about it after anyway. So I know the impact mentally, emotionally it had on her even years after. So for yourself, what was that like for you at the time? And also, what was it like for you returning as a reformed practitioner, female mentor? So how was it both sides of the fence?
I think like when I was actually a prisoner myself, I was already institutionalized. I was a care kid, so it wasn't that like daunting for me, only because I think I was very conditioned. I've said these things publicly already, like in terms of me not being able to open my door, hearing keys, hearing radios, like all of that was normalized in my children's home before even going to prison. So that part of it wasn't, and again, still kind of in survival mode. So once you go there, you just figure out, I need to survive in this situation. Going back to do the documentary was so weird. I think I went numb again, like, because I went through years of therapy, so I could really actually connect to my feelings and try and function as a normal person in society. I did so many years of doing that. And then when I went back to do the documentary, I flatlined again. It felt like I flatlined again. And then so a part of all of our productions, we do, because we're very, very passionate about being trauma-informed, we do have trauma-informed production frameworks that we've created. So we have like therapists on set. We have like a whole therapeutic pathway before you even get on camera, after you, even with our podcast, everything. Like every woman we sit down with gets offered therapy if you want to engage for a certain amount of time. It's free. And stuff like that. So I was very happy to have that containment of having my therapist with me throughout
safe
that journey.
Space there whilst on set.
Like if I was triggered on site, I would be able to have that safe space provided for me. But it was so conflicting doing that, because it's like I'm sitting across from like a woman who's reminding me of my mum, and like she didn't go down the same route of like alcoholism, but she started taking drugs due to her trauma, and that impacted her children. Her child ended up in care, which essentially was me. And then so then there's like this documentary is like, it was very weird dynamic, and we're having like really honest conversations, but also like getting our barriers up at the same time, because you're reminding me of like a wound that I haven't necessarily picked at yet.
But then at the same time as well, right? God, we could be all day. But
I know.
But, all right, but so one thing I know about trauma, but there also must be a sense of looking around and thinking, wow, look where we was, and look where we are now. And that sense, and that's almost like, you're not trauma. You had me for a minute, you know. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we have that.
No, you don't have that.
I don't have that. No. And I think, and I'm grateful I don't have that, because I think that's what makes me a high achiever.
Right.
Because I never, whether you tell me something positive about what I'm doing or you tell me something negative about what I'm doing, it doesn't faze me. I'm doing what I'm doing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you're on your thing.
I'm so in tune with like how I'm trying to do it, and like that I don't have time for the outside noise, and that's where I can play with my trauma, and it benefits me.
No, I think what I mean, maybe I said this wrong. All right, so like you've overcome, and all the women that return, they've overcome. But
but we still think we're not good enough.
But you still think you're not good enough.
And that's the trauma. That's living with that trauma. So and that's what makes us high achievers. Because I was saying to you earlier, like, as much as people say, "Oh, you're doing all these great things," blah blah, I'm like, no, this is not good enough. This is not.
No,
what's going on in my head?
It's true. It's true. Because when we're on the phone, I'm like, Leo, you're smashing this thing. Like, no, you're not. I'm not. You know. I'm like, no, Leo, you see what you're doing? She's like, nah. But it's part of what you're saying. Yeah.
But that's that, and I think that. I know that comes from a place of trauma. That comes from a place of me knowing my parents didn't want me. I don't feel good. I was raped. I was this. I was that. So like all of that type of stuff all feeds into. I just figured out a way to make it work for me, basically. And I don't. Honestly, I've never felt proud of myself. I don't know what that feeling feels like. So going back, I didn't feel that sense of like achievement. Again, like I said, I met my 18-year-old self, and I met myself in a state I wasn't ready to kind of like see myself like that. I wasn't willing to see that I had been like failed by social service the way I did. Like, to me, I would rather that narrative of like, I was just a bad girl. Like, I just did what I had to do. I would have rather that narrative than me actually realizing, hold on, I was actually kind of a victim. I was groomed. Like, I was actually those things to accept. It was very hard for me to accept those things. And so I struggled to kind of feel that sense of achievement. But when I went back as a director now, that was after the me being a part of the documentary. Now I'm walking back in the gates as a director. We got equipment. We got equipment that's like worth the same as a Ferrari. Like, I've raised like serious money for this project. Like, that was affirming. That's the only way I could describe that feeling. That was like,
but that's what I'm saying. But
I could do this.
But that's what I'm trying to say to you, though. Like, all right, so me and I always have conversations about trauma. Trauma is for me. Trauma is a daily thing. In fact, we're all walking traumas. The whole world, everyone's gone through some form of trauma. Some worse than others, whatever, whatnot. Right? Yeah. But I'm very big on overcoming. And even though, like, we've gone through some shit, we've gone through some bad times, things have been rocky. Right. Always like, I mean, you're such a Scorpio, right?
You lot still on that thing.
No, you're such a Scorpio, right? But at the same time as well, right? It's just nice to, like, every now and then, like, right, I've done all right, and I know, because for me, like, you've gone in as a producer now, so there must have been that, wow, like, just even for a short time, like,
for a short time, I felt it. I felt like I can do this. This is actually, this is gonna work. Like, this makes sense. That makes sense. But then that other thought kicks in. And it's like, got to get rid of that production company. This is my production company now. And now I'm starting to like, do you understand? So that other side kicks in at the same time. But
what's your vision, Aaliyah, now for Daddyless Daughters project? Because I know obviously we've spoken outside already. You've contacted local authorities now. So how far do you want to go with it? Because obviously, and I'm saying openly, Daddyless Daughters project in local authorities needed. It really is needed, but 100% is needed. Like, there's money there, there's money there,
I'm actually gonna get her some.
No, we're gonna do it. Trust me. But what's your vision? What's the next steps you want to go through?
The vision is like really big. And to be honest with you, I think the reason why it's taken me so long to launch the Sister Squad outreach program and go down this kind of local authority route is because I didn't want to be a part of the system. I didn't want to. I didn't want to.
I know. We've spoken. And I hear that. It's true. I hear that.
So long. So my ideal business model is to actually create my own thing.
Separate thing.
You guys can refer me, girls, and they're part of us all day. But like, we don't have to do business with you or dance to the rhythm of your song. We're doing our own thing. But right now, I want to. My next like 3 to 5 year strategy is obviously to get Sister Squad outreach program nationally recognised and to be out there nationally supporting girls across England and Wales. Secondly, I do want to go into accommodation as well. I don't want to go into 3-bed model or like having a home like that. I want to go into the standalone model. That's going to be the best model to complement the work that we do within the community, and also to scale quite quicker and be able to impact more girls across the country. Whereas if I just opened a free bed in Croydon, that's not big enough for me. I need to be across the country.
I know. Bro, outside the thing. Outside of this thing, bro. Outside of the thing, yeah. I know. You tell her outside of the thing, innit? I know.
Mad.
That's my free to fly.
Yeah. You lot are Scorpios, yeah. You are, man. Yeah. You lot are Scorpios. What's it been like lately? Because obviously, you do a lot of training. You're training social workers. You're training practitioners. What's it been like to train professionals?
I love it. I feel like that's like when I have like, I just, like when you just, I feel like that's my calling, if anything.
Yeah.
Because it's like I feel it in me, and I walk away from those experiences. But there is a come down though. But I walk away from those experiences feeling the most stimulated ever. And I guess it's because it's a space that I can own, and I can have those challenging conversations with professionals. In a way that I know is going to stick with them forever, and that impact and that conversation that I have with them is so valuable, and they're able to say things in those rooms that they can't necessarily say to their seniors.
They can't tell their managers, innit? Yeah.
So now I'm literally in a space where I can bridge that gap. I can then go back to my young girls, and knowing the barriers that I know professionals are facing with, I can now tell my girls or have conversations and design workshops with my girls that help break down those barriers.
Right.
So like all of that work kind of feeds into each other, but then again, it does feel sometimes living with complex PTSD and like the reality of like my story. It's not a story, it's my life, isn't it? So like living with the reality of it, the come down, it's also not a nice process. I have to take care of myself.
Can I ask you another question? So so I go into a lot of schools. But there's a particular question that I always ask all professionals, right? Yeah, and the question is, but I'm gonna ask you from another angle, right? So the question is, does school prepare young people for real life? And then also as well, do schools prepare young females for real life? And if they don't, what should they be doing more? What should be on the school curriculum to, especially nowadays, make sure that necessity is there?
I think the three main areas, well, to answer your question, no, I don't think it is. I don't remember the question, but I don't think that they are taught what they need to be taught.
Yeah.
And I think the three main areas, the most important area that I think young people need to be taught is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And then I think it's self-image, and then I think it's identity.
Excellent.
And so those are the three main areas that we focus on.
Yeah.
And those are the three main areas that we have proven if we develop a young girl in those three areas, it's much less likely for her to end up a teenage mother. It's much less likely for her to end up in an abusive relationship. It's much less likely for her to get an eating disorder, to self-harm, or to end up in, prison.
Yeah. I've got a closing question to ask you, and it's a question based on what you said in the last episode as well. So you've mentioned about your training, and you've got this project and you've done layers. What can local authorities do to equip their social workers or practitioners who might meet with, say, a 14, 15-year-old Aaliyah, and they haven't got the training, or haven't got the empowerment to do so? What can local authorities do for their social workers? It's a big question I'm asking you because you mentioned about being failed in the last episode, and that's still sticking with me. So what can local authorities do? I'm not speaking for all of them, but I'm just saying, what can social workers do? It's a big question to ask you, but
I think what.
So, like, say for example, like if I've got a case and I know how I can work this case, but I'm feeling as though I'm not getting that support from higher up. What can I do as a social worker to make sure I don't fail my young girl or my young person? What can I do?
Also teachers.
And mentors, yacht workers. What can we all do?
Advocate. well, first of all, you need to be knowledgeable. You need to know what's going on in your area. Where can you signpost that young person? How can we get the community involved in that young person's everyday life? Because I think social workers in schools, they're quite limited in terms of how much time they can spend with young people. Whereas organizations like mine, organizations that are rooted within the community, I can be embedded in their everyday life. I know what she was doing yesterday. I can call her and be like, are you going home? I can, my team, we have the time, and we're here to do that, to have that everyday presence. So I think you should need to be knowledgeable and know what's going on around you and in your community and be able to identify what that young person needs, but don't go behind. I don't think it's good to go behind that young person's back to make those referrals without having honest and transparent conversations.
Right.
And making sure that they understand and they're in agreement that they need this for themselves. Because again, like I said, we can plant seeds, we can give tools, but nobody could change my life. I had to do it for myself. So I had to be a part of that process. So bring the young person in as early as possible to be a part of those meetings, to be a part of that process and brainstorm with them, because they know what they want. They deep down, these young people, they have aspirations. You understand? They just need to be nurtured, and they just need to feel safe enough to let down their barriers to show that to you. And then, like, also, I guess, like, I think more local authorities need to buy into training services like mine. I'm not the only person out here. I've also sat down with other girls, women who have lived experience, and helped them design their own training packages based on whatever niche they want to hit on. I do that as my spare time, because that's what I'm passionate about. But buying into those type of services, and what we're trying to do as well is kind of get like a project like layers embedded into a university, so we could create a whole module out of it. But stuff like that as well, if you could embed like lived experience, trauma-informed training into a yearly development plan for social service,
CPD,
on the front line, I think that also would benefit.
You know, I love hearing this. You know why? It goes back to what I keep saying. Everyone needs to keep up with the times. I'm very big on this, right? I don't care if you're a social worker, a teacher, a mentor, CAMS. I don't care what. Anything to do working with children, right? You got to keep up with the times. You got to know what's going on. You got to keep up with the lingo, the dress, the music, the surroundings, the lingo.
You have to.
Like you just have to, right? Because if you don't, you're gonna fail as a professional. Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, Ali is very necessary, or what she's doing is very necessary.
Very necessary.
So, but listen, you know,
do you know what? Do you know what? Honestly, I could have Aaliyah with us here for another half an hour. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, but Aaliyah, I just want to again thank you so much for this second episode. Where can they find you?
Everywhere. Google me. I'm joking. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. We're on YouTube. And we're going to be releasing a docuseries soon. You
got your podcast as well. What's your podcast? Plug your podcast.
We just did, our series last year was Dirty Water, which is exploring generational trauma.
Okay.
And kind of the fact that we didn't have clean water to bath in, so we just passed down dirty water to our parents and stuff like that. So that's on YouTube. I think our YouTube name is Daddyless Daughters.
Okay.
And then Daddyless_Daughters on Instagram, and then Aaliyah_Ali on Instagram. And we're on LinkedIn. Excellent.
And then guys, just for local authorities and for practitioners, can you start making your referrals, please? Yes. ASAP, please. To the sister squad. I've already listened. I've already linked up with Aaliyah already. I'm already pushing the thing. So please, professionals watching this, can you start making your referrals ASAP, please? As soon as possible. Now, as in today. Or when you log in, make the referrals, please.
All the information is there for you on our website, which is www.daddylessdaughters.co.uk.
Fantastic. Amazing.
Listen, this is a fantastic episode, you know.
Come on.
So listen, Leah, we're going to see you again anyways. It's not a thing. But guys, you know where to find us. You like, subscribe and share The Social Worker and the Mentor. Aaliyah, you like, subscribe, you share, and you refer. You do that, I have to plug that thing still.
With a capital R.
Capital R, And talk to your managers, talk to directors, get it all in. But guys, we will see you soon. Thank you.